Hello, I am Neil, and this is my wife, Sherry. Thank you for taking the time to get on this presentation. Now, in this video, you will learn about an incredible group of people who believe that they can live long, healthy lives. People who are taking total control of their lives, and these people are aggressively making health a priority. Now, you'll see these people involved in some very active lifestyles well beyond their years. Sure, there are some naysayers out there that say you're too old to bike, run, swim, hike, horseback ride, travel the world, and on and on. But these positive, active, healthy, go-for-it people, they smile and they say, just watch me. So let's get started. First, I want to introduce you to Dr. Bill Andrews. Bill is a PhD molecular biologist. He has spent his entire life on a quest to reverse the aging process in human beings. He and his research team at Sierra Sciences Lab in Reno, Nevada, actually discovered the human telomerase gene. Using chemicals to activate this gene, Bill Andrews and his research team proved that they could reverse the aging process in every parameter measurable in vitro in a laboratory. The only problem was the compounds that they were using to reverse the aging process were synthetic chemicals and toxic for humans. So first, what is a telomere? Well, they were actually discovered back in the 1950s by the Russians, but the technology wasn't advanced enough to really know what was going on with these telomeres. We now have the technology to learn about the important role that telomeres play in our health, and what role they play in aging and the degenerative issues, and how normal biological processes, as well as different lifestyle choices, affect our telomeres. Telomeres have become a hot topic, and because of Bill Andrews and his research and discovery, he's been spotlighted in a lot of articles and a lot of TV shows and talk shows and news shows. To understand the role telomeres play in all of this, we need a small refresher in human anatomy. So you have over 100 trillion cells in your body, and they make up who you are. Now, in the middle of every one of these cells is the nucleus, the power center of the cell. Within the nucleus are the chromosomes. Now, the chromosomes are very important because some very essential information called your DNA runs through the length of the chromosomes from tip to tip. That is your genetic material. Basically, who you are physically is all coded in your DNA. For example, if your hair is brown, then your DNA is telling the cells in your hair to be brown. Now, if your eyes focus at 20/20, it's your DNA that's causing your cells to act and respond that way. All the way down to how smooth or soft your skin is or how you recall memories. This is all traced back to the genetic imprint in your DNA. Now, scientists measure these chromosomes in what are called bases, and from tip to tip, your chromosomes are 100 million bases long. When you were born, the last 10,000 bases on each tip of your chromosome are your telomeres, and they protect the end of the chromosome. Your telomeres are being represented here by the green tips on the chromosomes. Through normal biological processes like cell duplication and DNA replication, these bases fall off as cells divide. And when you hit right around 5,000 bases, you're going to die of old age or degenerative issues because at 5,000 bases, your DNA starts to unravel. So to give you a visual analogy, Bill Andrews' way of explaining this is by using a shoestring as the example. Consider the plastic tip on the shoestring as the telomere. Now, we all know that when the plastic tip wears off of a shoestring, it starts to fray, right? Well, that is exactly what happens to the telomeres. So when we hit right around 5,000 bases, it's like losing the plastic tips on the shoestring. At this level here, where it's completely frayed and no longer usable, that is called the Hayflick point, because Professor Hayflick is the one that discovered that. Now here you've just lost too much of the DNA in that cell, and the cell is now unable to replicate. It reaches a point that is called senescence, and the cell dies. Now that is basic cell biology. As research has continued, they have learned that telomeres are a core foundation of your health. Typically, we think of aging as loss of memory, wrinkles, gray hair, balding, skeletal and muscle atrophy, low energy, weight gain, needing reading glasses, and on and on. But in reality, those are just the outward signs of aging. What's really happening to our bodies is we are losing the DNA. Research has pinpointed this process, and it all comes down to one particular spot in every cell, and that spot is on the very tips of every chromosome. The results of the damage to your DNA from cell replication shows up in these symptoms that are associated with aging. Now, this discovery, where telomeres are getting shorter, causing DNA damage, which results in aging, this discovery is what was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2009 in the category of physiology and medicine. So all these outward signs of aging, and in fact even the more serious degenerative issues like Parkinson's, lupus, diabetes, and Alzheimer's, they've all been linked to shorter telomeres. So this is the process that I'm about to show you. Let's just follow this process in the life of a cell. So let's take this cell. Now it could be a skin cell, a bone cell, or an organ cell, whatever. All cells have a lifespan. So let's just say that this cell is going through its lifespan, and let's say that it's 12 o'clock up here. It's going to die at 12 o'clock. So let's take the chromosome that would be in the middle of the cell and use this X to represent the chromosome of the original cell. So the cell is going along doing its job, and around 8:30 it knows that death is about to happen to the cell. It knows it's going to die soon, and so it prepares for death by copying the DNA. It's called DNA replication. And so what it does is it takes this chromosome and it copies it. It makes a second one, only it looks a little different, right? It's not as long as the original chromosome. Because remember, with cell division, your telomeres lose bases, and along with those bases, you're losing DNA. So then this cell comes up, and around 11:30, it knows it's going to die, so it splits. This old cell leaves the body as metabolic waste, and it dies. And this one, the new cell, takes its place. Now the original chromosome with the complete DNA of the original cell left the body with the old cell. And this copy is running the new cell. So is it 100% the same, or is it inferior? Well, the answer is it's inferior, right? It doesn't have all the same information. It lost a little bit off the tips, off the telomeres. Now, you wouldn't notice much change from one cell replication, but let's follow this sequence over and over. So this cell now goes through, it's doing its job, and around 8:30 to 9 it's preparing to die. So it copies the chromosome, and there is the new copy, and it's even shorter than the one that was already shorter than the original. And it goes up and it splits and puts this chromosome into the new cell. Now this chromosome is running the new cell, and this cell is going along doing its job through its life, and around 8:30 it prepares to die, and it copies the chromosome, and it puts the copy of the chromosome into the new cell. So you start adding up the years and the decades of cell duplication, and you have a lot of DNA damage. So the fact is, cells divide, and then these symptoms are showing up as telomeres get shorter. So the shorter the telomeres, the lesser the quality of life. Every one of these issues are related to and have been pinpointed to the shortened telomeres. So Dr. Bill Andrews coined this phrase: when cells divide, telomeres get shorter, and bad things happen when telomeres get short. Now, let's discuss this whole process of getting from 10,000 to 5,000 bases. Because we are gradually losing these bases, we don't see all the different symptoms at first. It goes like this. When we are young, even though our cells are dividing and we are losing telomeres and bases, we haven't been alive long enough to lose very many, so we don't see signs of aging right here. But when we're in our middle age, our telomeres are shorter and our cells aren't functioning as well. So the symptoms of aging start to show up, which really isn't a surprise, knowing that a lot of the original information in our DNA is now gone. So we are starting to see all of these different issues that show up with aging. And by the time you're in your 70s and 80s, you just don't have a lot of information left. Biologically, your ticking clock is about ticked out. So we now understand what telomeres are and that they are a core foundation of our health. The relationship between cells dividing, telomeres getting shorter, and the degenerative issues, this is critical information in being able to manage the aging process. Another element to consider here is that science now proves that our lifestyle choices also affect how fast our telomeres get short. Certain lifestyle choices like smoking, abusing alcohol, being exposed to toxicity, lack of nutrition, lack of exercise, and stress actually speed up the rate at which your telomeres are being lost. They have literally linked trans fats to shortening your telomeres. Actually, stress shortens your telomeres faster than any of these that I've mentioned. So bad lifestyle choices or a difficult lifestyle can shorten your telomeres and speed up your aging process. Well, please note that good lifestyle choices can lengthen telomeres, but that's a discussion we'll have to save for another day. Now, this is where everything starts to change, and wow, I really want you to listen, because here's where some new and exciting things are happening with this whole telomere scene. Dr. Bill Andrews and his research team at Sierra Sciences Lab made a major discovery. They discovered the human telomerase gene. Now, this microscopic gene is part of our DNA, and they discovered the role that the telomerase gene plays in the aging process. Dr. Bill Andrews and his team found that the telomerase gene is in every cell of the human body, but not operating and working effectively, except they discovered that the telomerase gene is working in the reproductive cells, the actual sperm and egg cells that procreate new life. So let's talk about this telomerase gene and what does it do? This gene is like this little factory, and it adds nucleotides to the ends of the newly copied chromosomes to keep the telomeres long, so there's no deterioration of telomeres that protect the chromosomes. So think of it as a switch in the cell that can be turned on and off. Now, in the reproductive cells, the switch is on, but in every other cell in the body, the switch is turned off or it's repressed. Now, Dr. Bill Andrews found that this switch is turned on by an enzyme. However, only the reproductive cells in your body are getting the enzyme to turn the switch on. So let's do the same scenario for cell duplication with the reproductive cells and see what's happening. Now, this could be a huge moment if you get this, because this is a pivotal point in the research which has led to understanding the importance of telomeres and how they affect our aging process. In fact, when Dr. Bill Andrews discovered the telomerase gene, that discovery changed everything. This was a huge discovery, and Bill was awarded second place as National Inventor of the Year for this work. So here we go. This reproductive cell divides just like every other cell in your body. So right about here, it's preparing to die, and so it copies the chromosome. And again, the chromosome is shorter just like all the other cells that divide. But in the reproductive cell, the human telomerase gene is turned on. And so this little factory re-adds nucleotides to the end of those new chromosomes, and it lengthens the telomeres. Now they are exactly the same as the original cell. Now what that means is cell division after cell division for decades, each reproductive cell has the same chromosome and DNA that the original cell had. They call it an immortal cell, and it doesn't age or deteriorate. It can go on and divide an infinite amount of times, and the chromosome that is running the new cell is exactly the same as the chromosome that was running the original cell. Now, did you get that? I mean, this was a huge find, a big, big breakthrough. Let's discuss one reason why this is so important. Imagine that you are 40 years old and that you're going to have a baby, and the cells in your body are 40 years old, right? So at birth, that baby's skin, eyes, organ, hairs, it should all just be as old as you are because it inherited cells from you. Well, how can a new life come from a parent that has 40-year-old cells? Well, Bill's discovery that the reproductive cells are immortal explains this. That baby is younger than you because it started out with brand new cells that you gave it. The living proof of Bill's discovery is that after 4 decades of cell duplication in your body, your immortal reproductive cells can create a new life with new cells. So that brought up a great question, and maybe some of you are thinking what I'm thinking. What if we could turn this human telomerase gene back on in all of our cells? Or is that even possible? Because remember, the telomerase gene is in every cell in our body. It's just not getting the enzyme to turn it on. And I'm going to show you a video made by Lancer Brown of Sierra Sciences Lab discussing what happened in the lab with skin cells in their attempt to turn on the telomerase gene. After they discovered the human telomerase gene, Bill Andrews and his team went to work in their lab anxious to find a compound that would activate this telomerase gene. Now, by the late 1990s, they had screened over 304,000 compounds to try to find a trigger to activate the telomerase gene. In almost 5 years of testing and 304,000 attempts, they found 8 compounds that activated the telomerase gene. They're called positive controlled compounds, and the height of these red lines represents the potency level of these 8 compounds in triggering the telomerase enzyme to produce those nucleotides that keep the telomeres long. But remember, these 8 compounds are chemicals that are toxic. Okay, so this is the potency level. 304,000 attempts, they found 8. Now listen to what they did with these 8 compounds. It's fascinating. Lancer Brown is a scientist, and sorry, a little bit dry, but pay attention to this video. There's a lot of information packed in it. It's about a minute long. We'll discuss it after you watch it.
In 1997, we inserted the telomerase gene into normal human skin cells, grown in a petri dish. When we observed that the telomerase enzyme was being produced in these cells, we then assayed the telomere lengths. We noticed that the skin cells were essentially becoming immortal. There was virtually no limit to the number of times the cells could divide. When the lengths of the telomeres were assayed and we got the results in, we observed that the telomerized cells had actually lengthened their telomeres rather than seeing the telomeres get shorter. The critical question then was whether or not the cells were becoming younger. A few years later, another lab inserted the telomerase gene, the same gene we were using, that already had very short telomeres. These cells were then grown into the skin of the back of mice. Now, in this experiment, they had old mice, young mice, and telomerized mice. When looking at the old mice, we noticed that the skin was getting wrinkled. It blistered easily, and we noticed some gray hair. As for the young and telomerized mice, there was virtually no difference. When we looked at the gene expression patterns between the young and telomerized mice, we noticed that the genes being expressed were virtually identical between the two. This created very exciting possibilities for us because it was the first evidence showing that telomerized cells actually return to a young morphology. They look young, they express the same genes as young cells, and this is where the impact of telomerase on aging is truly going to have a lot of potential and excitement.
Now, did you catch all that? In 1997, Sierra Sciences Lab inserted the telomerized gene into normal human skin cells that were being grown in a petri dish. And the results showed that as the cells were dividing, the telomeres weren't getting shorter, they were getting longer. Lancer Brown said that they were essentially becoming immortal. There was no limit to the amount of times they could divide. They were starting to act like the reproductive cells. Now, Sierra Sciences Lab proved that they could lengthen the telomeres. So now the question was, are the cells actually getting younger? Now, a few years after Sierra Sciences' skin cell experiment, Harvard Medical School borrowed those same compounds for their research purposes. They used the same telomerase gene used in Dr. Bill's lab and grew human skin cells into the backs of mice. Now, when they compared the gene expression pattern in these telomerized mice to mice that were already young, the gene expression pattern was identical. Lancer Brown said they literally returned the DNA back to a young morphology. That means they reversed the aging process by lengthening the telomeres. They did it. They reversed the aging process, not just on the outside or in the appearance, but all the way down to where it matters most, your genetic imprint, your DNA and telomeres. Now remember, the compounds they used to trigger or to activate the telomerase gene couldn't be used in humans because they were too toxic for human consumption. But both labs had proved that they could reverse the aging process in every parameter measured in their labs. Essentially, they took old skin and they made it young, and then they kept it young. They turned old mice into young mice. This is fascinating work. Pretty huge breakthrough here. However, so far, this is all just research. Even Dr. Andrews said, at this point in time, no one's even come close to finding compounds like this that are safe, that could be used in humans. So essentially, this is what the research found. Just imagine taking these cells that were already showing signs of aging symptoms, right here, these are old cells, now being able to turn on the telomerase gene in them and taking these cells back to young cells. These old cells, they're exemplifying some kind of symptom or multiple symptoms, let's say poor eyesight for an example. So you're wearing reading glasses here because the cells have gotten to this point of deterioration. Imagine if you take that cell back to young. What's going to happen to the need for the reading glasses? Well, you're not going to need them anymore because you didn't need them when you were young. You needed them as your telomeres shortened and the cells deteriorated as you got older. So taking the cells back to where they were when you were young, that is what they were able to do in the lab. It's incredible what they did. Recently, ABC News reported on what Dr. DeFino of Harvard Medical School did with these compounds. Now check this out. And they get into a little bit more detail than talking about skin and hair. Watch this.
And now, eternal youth. Is it in a cage around the corner? News tonight of a breakthrough for some pioneering mice. But we always wonder, what does a fountain of youth for rodents reveal for humans? Here's Sharon Alfonsi reporting.
I feel tremendous.
In the movie Cocoon, it's a swimming pool that turns back the clock for a group of senior citizens. But now researchers have found a way not just to stop, but reverse the aging process. The key is something called a telomere. We all have them. They're the tips or caps of your chromosome, seen here in yellow. This is what it looks like in a young adult. But as you grow older, the telomeres become damaged and frayed, and as they stop working, we start aging, experiencing things like hearing and memory loss. Scientists took mice who were prematurely aged, added an enzyme, and essentially turned their telomeres back on. You can see it before the enzyme, after.
Their brain function improved, their fertility was restored. It was a remarkable reversal of the aging process.
Look at this picture. The mouse on the right has bad skin, gray hair, and is balding. But the one on the left had its telomeres flipped back on.
And you could see that essentially you now have a dark coat color, that the hair is restored, that the coat has a nice healthy sheen to it.
Even more dramatic, the change in brain size. This is before. The mice had 75% of a normal brain, like a patient with severe Alzheimer's. But after the telomeres were reactivated, the brain returns to normal size. As for humans, while it is just one factor, scientists now say by looking at our blood cells and measuring those telomeres, you can get a better idea of how well you'll age. The longer the telomere, the better the chances for a more graceful aging. But as for tinkering with them and turning back our aging process, researchers say we still have a long way to go. Sharon Alfonsi, ABC News, New York.
So the implications and what's going on here goes far beyond skin and hair. In the Harvard lab, they literally restored the organs. They said that this brain would be similar to a patient with Alzheimer's. And here the brain was restored back to 100% capacity? I mean, would that be life-changing for the world or what? We're talking about huge implications here. Well, here's where I'm really excited to tell you about Dr. Bill Andrews teaming up with a nutraceutical and wellness formulator, John Anderson. For more than 30 years, John Anderson had formulated nutraceutical products that were natural, plant-based products with no chemicals for over 600 private label companies. Now, after meeting Dr. Andrews, John was real excited. As quickly as possible, John built a $4 million lab right in his own backyard on his ranch. He brought in all the latest equipment and he got to work. And so here the collaboration begins. Now, I need to say here that we are transitioning from research about telomeres and the telomerase gene and what Bill was able to do in the lab to talking about reality and a product called Product B. We live in a world where we have to conform to certain laws, and so now I need to make a disclaimer. Product B is not a drug. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. Okay, to be clear, I'm not making any claims here. We're talking about supporting telomeres. And so with that stated, let's learn about Product B. Remember the 8 compounds that Bill Andrews had found to activate the telomerase gene in the lab? They weren't fit to be consumed by humans because they were toxic, right? Well, Bill and John collaborated, and John began compounding natural ingredients that he believed would respond like the 8 compounds that were these hits that were toxic. Now, over the next year and a half, John formulated 62 different natural compounds and had them tested by Sierra Sciences lab. Bill's team ran the test just like they did with these compounds, and guess what? Out of the 62 formulations, there were 7 hits with John's all-natural ingredient compounds, meaning they activated the telomerase gene and they were completely safe for humans to consume. Now you can see the similarities here. Bill Andrews was so excited and pleased with the natural results that he said of John Anderson, "What John has been able to do with these natural ingredients makes this the greatest collaboration of my lifetime." Bill said, "I don't know how he's doing it, but in my opinion, this puts John Anderson in the category of genius." So with that, John Anderson created Product B, and at this point it had 7 active ingredients, with literature stating that Product B ingredients have been proven to induce telomerase. John patented his compounds. No one can copy John's work. Now keep in mind that John Anderson has been on the cutting edge of creating nutraceutical products for more than 30 years, and this is what John said of Product B. "This is the new generation of nutrition. You're going to witness these miracles and fiction become a reality." John wasn't done yet, so he kept researching and formulating different combinations of natural ingredients. And when they tested his new formulas in Sierra Sciences lab, they found 2 more natural compounds that registered off the charts. Now, these were significantly more powerful or potent than anything they had ever seen. This find just blew everyone at Sierra Sciences lab away. To have these compounds be so potent makes Product B better at supporting telomeres than they ever expected. Well, these 2 ingredients are now in Product B. It's so awesome to be a part of this reality and to be sharing this with people and watching the transformations. We call it youthful aging because Product B is actually supporting the telomeres. So you guys, this is it. The product is here. The first day that Product B was released, over $1.4 million of Product B was sold in just a couple of hours. Bill Andrews said, "When I heard that you named it Product B for billion-dollar product, it made me realize that you didn't understand the full impact of what was about to happen. If you knew what I knew and the role that this product is going to play in health, you would have named it Product T for trillion-dollar product." So you ask, is Product B safe? Well, you may be aware that the FDA has a list of ingredients that they know don't cause any side effects. It's called the GRAS list, meaning generally regarded as safe. And all the ingredients in Product B are on the GRAS list. When you start taking this product, Dr. Bill Andrews says that you should see some kind of physical results within the first 3 weeks, as far as mental clarity, better energy, better night's sleep. We're seeing some of the things happen almost immediately for a lot of people. But you're going to want to give this product time to get into every cell and saturate it. I strongly encourage you to be on it for at least 4 months before you decide anything, because it takes 120 days or so to saturate every cell. Now, because you are listening today, your introductory price of Product B is $79 a bottle. Now, 1 bottle is enough for a 1-month supply for 1 person. It comes in a capsule form with 120 capsules per bottle. You take 4 a day, 2 in the morning, 2 at night, with or without food. It's very easy to take and it's very safe. Now comes the point of choice. You now know about Bill Andrews and telomeres and how this genius, John Anderson, has made this a reality years ahead of what scientists were predicting. It has been proven in the lab, and now product B is proven to induce telomerase. Let me state this boldly. It's not about knowing when you will die or even how long you will live. This is all about how well you're aging and being able to manage your aging. It's about choosing to be proactive in the things that you can control to help you be able to enjoy your life. So think about it. Let's say from age 55 to 85 or even 95 years old, instead of having aches and pains, being too tired to do the things that you love to do, suffering from major illness, being in a wheelchair, or just plain feeling old, join a group of active, take control people who believe that you can spend all those years doing the things that you love to do. Playing tennis or golf, boating, skiing, horseback riding, vacationing, seeing the world, going on cruises, spending quality time with your family, or actually playing with your grandchildren. We take product B every day, and personally, we will never go another day without it. Now there are many thousands of people who will never go without product B. So it's your choice. Now, if you're like us and you want to keep your telomeres long and healthy and you just can't wait to get product B into each and every one of your 100 trillion cells, then just click the continue button below. And you will be directed to a secure order page where you can make your purchase and get this incredible product on its way to you today. Or you can call me, text me, email me, or just make sure that your contact information is accurate. And we will contact you to answer your questions and get your product B on its way to you. Now, my opinion is that product B got its name from product believe. Believe that you can live longer, healthier lives. Believe that you can take control of your health and make a huge difference in the quality of your life. We believe. We invite you to join us and live Product B. Thanks for your time. Talk to you soon.